Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this episode of Off the Dome. So this is my fledgling episode, the first one, and this is going to be different than the other videos. I've done some videos where I've done interviews, and I've done some more formal videos where it's like set up and staged and scripted and everything. And this is a little bit different. What I want to do is I want to go through and just do some stream of consciousness work and teach that way, right? So I'll encounter the errors, you'll encounter the errors, because errors are things that you encounter, right? And being able to work through the errors is really being able to work through the barriers is really what separates the men from the boys, or I don't want to, that's not meant to offend anyone. Okay, it's just a term, right? So let's get going. So today, what I'm going to be doing, what we're working on today, is we are going to be building an iOS app and publishing it to the iOS App Store. I'm not going to actually do a publish, but I am going to create the app real quick, just a basic counter app, and take you through the publishing process. What you should be getting from this is very simply the development and publishing process, right? So I'm using Visual Studio 2019 for Mac, and I'm on a MacBook Pro, the new M1 versions. So let's go ahead and let's create. I'm going to be using C# Xamarin. Let's create a blank application, and I'm going to do just iOS. So basic counter, just call it basic counter. And there's going to be background music playing, so just follow along when if I'm not talking. So you're all set. I say that to say that as I'm going along, unless there's something important to say, I'm pretty much not going to be saying anything. Like like right now, it's restoring. I probably won't be saying anything. So the first thing we're doing is we are going to create the code base for this. So right now, if I just ran this, we're all set. So switch it over to this emulator. I think this is stuck. I'm not sure. It's taking its time, that's for sure. All right, here we go. So the app is up and running. We're good to go. So there's a cool thing that Microsoft or Xamarin or whomever did this has created. It's called edit and continue. Normally, when you're building applications, you have to stop and start to see the changes, especially because these day and age, for whatever reason, editors don't give you a view of what you're creating anymore. They just don't even waste their time. Because I think with all the changes to pretty much everything, different devices, different form factors, different things like the notch over there, there's no way for them to really be able to, there's no way for that to be a promise. The only way you can get a promise is to actually run it on the device to see how it's working. So over here, you look at the code and we are in a stack layout. So I'm actually going to put another stack layout in there because I don't like messing around with my first layout, my main layout, my root layout. I like to have a root layout just because it's a last. You really need to do something. You really need something that goes over everything else without Z indexing. Putting it just in a container gives you that. So I like to have a last layer, and that's usually the layer where I will have any weight cursors or anything like that will sit in that layer. You know, any flyouts that I create, any custom flyouts, anything I do. So if you're coming from the Windows side and you want to know how to reformat your screen, it's option. It's actually sorry, not option. Control I, right? So Control I will do the same reformat that we get with Control K, I believe, on the Windows machine. So Control I. Okay, so now that we're here, I'm going to try to see if I can. I just want to see if editing continues working, honestly. So I'm going to do 0. See if that works. No, it does not work. So it is not updating that. Just double check. And there's no hot reload right now. So I'm not gonna go and download it and install it to see if there's a newer version because I don't want to bore you guys to death. So I'm just gonna run this again. This is kind of a bummer having to go through each time. So as you can see over on the left, there's some apps there. If you get a chance, this broadcast is brought to you by FastPass. Go download FastPass. It's a payment platform. It's not the same as PayPal and all those things. This is just something for you to be able to do, for you to be able to pay people, right? So more for companies and less for like regular people. So any company can send you, you buy something, you don't want to touch anything, you don't want to pull out your credit card, all you got is your phone. They don't have, their thing isn't working or the terminal has some issues, whatever it is. You can just use FastPass. You give them your phone number, they will send the order to you, you pay, they get notification that you've paid, done and done, right? So try FastPass, go download it from the Android store, or go to flexpay.com and get it. And then the other app is Stackables. It is a belly dance training app. So if you want to practice your dancing or you want to, get it for your wife or your girlfriend or tell them about it, go right ahead. It's a great device for that. Great app for just learning the basics of belly dancing, which is a great thing for anybody who wants to develop their core and have a lot of very good core control, a lot of very good belly control. Really can use that. It's not just a woman thing or a female thing. Okay, so we'll stop this and we'll start again because that's hideous and we want to focus on what we're really trying to do here. So this is inside of a frame, and frame gives you that stupid drop shadow. So I'm going to take it out of a frame and I'm going to make it a grid because I just don't like that. And then inside the grid, I'm going to add a rectangle. Okay, so I use the rectangle for basically a background color. I don't like to use the background color of the grid because I want to be able to create the same things that you have if you came from WPF. You have this thing called a border, and with a border, It was basically a content border around whatever you're creating. And you could set a background color for it, and then you could set the radius of each corner individually. So you could create some pretty cool shapes for a container just from that basic thing, because you could set the corner, the radius of it, and you can set it individually. So it's better than even a rectangle can do. You can essentially only, you set it once in a rectangle and it's everything. But in a border, you could have things like curves on the bottom, straight up top, or pointy left, pointy right, curve between. So you could create all these kind of cool shapes. So I kind of like using a rectangle for that. So I'm gonna make this blue, maybe light. Then the label will continue to be there. Everything else stays the same, right? And then I'm also going to make okay, so how am I going to do this? Okay, so the issue is that I need to make the remainder of it. Let me stop and see how this looks. This is why editing continue is just so cool. I just wish it worked reliably, because it just does not. You'll see there's no corner radius on the grid. In the later versions of UWP, they added borders. I don't know if they added corner radius, but they definitely added borders to all the content controls. I hope that comes to Salmon Forms, because honestly, it's sad to say, but what these guys did with this is hideous. I don't know why my thing isn't doing what it's supposed to do here. This is how I do it. Unfortunately, this is just a pain in the butt. This is options. Yeah, I'm going to have to abandon styling this, because with the edit and continue, this would be a 50-hour program. So I'm just going to get to, I'm just going to get to it, because this ain't working. Okay, so I'm going to make this light blue. And this is the last one. Because the padding is 24, that's why. Okay. 24, no, make the margin. Or the padding here was 24 up here. So it's bringing everything in, but I want my rectangle to basically function as the background for the grid. So what I'm doing here is I removed it so that the rectangle would fill up the whole grid. And then I don't think I even need this. And then I basically, now that I've done that, I have to set because I want the text in the middle, I have to set a margin for the text. So this should give us essentially what I'm trying to create here. All right, perfect. Okay, so only one thing, s equals 0. Gosh, I'm not gonna lie to you. if you're going to be doing any kind of development, you got to get yourself a Windows machine. I mean, I'm on a MacBook here. I'm sure there's a lot of things it's great for, a lot of point and click related things, but this is just brutal compared to the kind of experiences we get with Windows. It's just brutal. All right, so that's enough. So let's get rid of all this content because honestly, we don't need it. And we just need a label. And we need a button. Okay. And you know what I'm going to do, honestly? I'm going to redo this whole thing on a Windows machine, the whole thing. And we'll see how far we get in terms of deploying and the things we have to do so that, to basically stay on your Windows machine and basically build an app on your Windows machine and publish it. And that'll be good for people to see, right? And it'd be good to see the difference. Maybe I'll even do a side by side just to show, because this is kind of brutal. I'm really not going to lie to you. Text equals. I'm going to stop this. Honestly, I thought that this was part of what was causing the problem. Yeah. I mean, I seem to have lost, okay, so. You know what? Let's go ahead and let's make this. Okay, so. Okay, so now we have our plus and our minus in our count. Okay. So it's, let me see, maybe if I stop this and start this, this will start working. This is just dead. This is not normally, honestly, how this is. I don't know what the heck is going on, but it sucks. So in my opinion, again, I'm coming from Visual Studio on a Windows machine, and I'm coming from doing this with UWP and Xamarin Forms. While it's nice and all that stuff, it sort of varies between the different versions. Depending on where it's being deployed, it's not really this pixel perfect thing. I doubt it could be, so. So I gotta make these just a little bit bigger. Barely see them. 30 might be too big. 20. Margin 10. Okay. All right, let's see if this is laid out how we need it to be. Oh, I should have made this 0. Good. Set that at 0. Horizontal. Horizontal options. All right. I think we got everything. All right, here we go. We almost got everything. I'm gonna go ahead and make these 30 each. And of course, I have to center this. All right. That's looking a little bit better. So I have a thing about creating margins all over the place. So I usually just try to use the top margin for everything, even though these technologies allow you to basically do whatever you want. So there's 40, and I think that's done. And maybe I'll just make the text color equal green. Font options, something like that, but for right now, who cares? Okay, so then we go here and hopefully, thank goodness. I would have had to stop this video if this wasn't working. I mean, there's something serious going on here. Man, this is just a basic project, man. This is crazy. And what I mean here is that this is like I just started a project. All right, I'm gonna try to quit and restart. Maybe this will help. This is crazy. All right, basic counter. You guys can see the time, right? All right, will this open? All right, looks like we're back to civilization. The outage is done. So BTN increased, clicked. BTN decreased, clicked. Okay. And decrease. All right, so sometimes you just gotta restart things. I have my code here. Got my code all written up. Should be on the go now. I don't know why that happened. I'm gonna close this. I want to use this one right here. So to switch, you have to pick the one you want. So I'm doing the iPhone 13 5.0, 5.2. There's probably a way to set that. So I'm gonna run this. There we go. So that's running now. Okay, there we go. So it's counting up, counting down, counting up. Okay, counting down. So we've got our basic counter. Okay, nothing special here. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this thing and we are going to deploy it. We're gonna go through the deployment workflow. So the first part of it is what we just did now. You design it out, make sure it looks nice, get your application all laid out, looking nice, and then maybe even have a click through with fake data on your controls, that how exactly they're gonna look your views, actually pump fake data into everything and just click through everything and get everything visually looking the way you want it to look, right? That's going to be your mockup, right? Then you take your mockup and you then start, that's the second phase that I did here, which is that I now start slinging all the code in there, making things actually work the way they are supposed to work, right? Right. So make sure that you don't start slinging code before you give the mockup. Make sure you give the mockup with fake data and everything to whoever it is wants this thing built, right? You give it to them, they can look at it. Oh, I don't like the font yet. I don't like, because you don't want to be worrying about those things when you get to this next phase. Next phase is do this, right? So now you've got your mockup running, you've got the code set up and it's running in the emulator. Now we want to try to take that and we want to run it on the machine. Now, let's see what happens when we just try to run it on an iPhone. So I have an iPhone plugged in here. So I'm going to take this, put it towards my iPhone, and then I'm just going to press play. Right? So what it says here, if you can't read it, is could not find any available provisioning profiles for basic-counter.ios, right? So this is the thing with Apple, as opposed to Android and all these other platforms, even Windows, is that you need all kinds of stuff on there's no default native side loading. So even getting your stuff running on your app requires all kinds of certificates to be put onto your phone. And so that means you have to go to the App Store and register and do all those things to get that going, right? So right now, what we're going to do at this point is we're going to go through that process of trying to register this application. I'm going to slice this whole thing out and just have that as a separate video for whomever of just how do you we have a fully running application and we now want to take this fully running application and we want to completed application and we want to now start putting on the App Store. So first thing you're going to have to do is you go in here to your info.plist, right? And make sure that you have put a proper bundle identifier, right? So bundle identifier is something that you use to identify your app bundle, your executable the bundle that is your app that goes to everybody's phone, right? And everywhere, right? So these names, I believe, they don't have to be unique, but they should be unique to your specific account that you have with Apple. So you're going to go and create a developer account And then come in here, and what I usually do see says company name, just put your company name. So my company name is FlexPay, right? So I just put FlexPay Inc, right? In fact, just FlexPay. Oh, oopsie. I like FlexPay better, right? So com.flexpay, that basic counter. So that is your bundle identifier. Now, if you saw my video on Google, you remember that one of the problems with the Google App Store is that when you're publishing, there's no connection between your application name and the files being that you publish. There's no connection in Google, right? So when you do a release, it's not tied to your application name. It doesn't have a bundle identifier or anything like this. So the first time you do a release, you have to manually upload those files into the app that you want them to be associated with. Once you've done that and those apps have been uploaded, that creates that connection between the app and what you're doing. But with Apple, that does not exist there. So first thing we have to do is we have to go to Apple. Okay, I guess we are here. Just reviewing an issue here. So we go to Apple. And when you're fully signed in, you're going to be in something like this. Actually, let me just go through the sign-in process again, go into the account. So this is going to be your starting point: people, certificate, identifiers, profile. So there's two things that you really need here. You need the certificates and certificates, identifiers, and profiles, and you need the App Store Connect. You need the both of them. So we're going to start over here. And we're going to create what's called an app identifier. What is an app identifier? It's that thing that we're talking about that connects all the apps that you upload to the store with something, right? So in here, if you recall over here, we called it com.flexpay, that basic counter. So over here, it's app ID, continue. It's for an app, continue. And over here, see, it says bundle ID. So I'm going make sure I get that. That can't be the bundle ID. Sorry, I'm struggling through using Apple. Copy. All right, so there we go. And so this is the bundle for basic counter app. Basic counter, and it doesn't use any of these things, right? So say okay, and then we register it. So now that it's registered, if I were to go into it, you'll notice that I cannot change this. It's permanently tied to this app. So now those two things are tied together. So the next big pillar, there are three key pillars. The first one was the identifier. The next one is the certificate, okay? And so in this case, we already have certificates put together. So you see here, there's a certificate for iOS development. When you're doing development on iOS, we have a certificate here that's basically set up for that. So you need to create a certificate for all the scenarios that you work with, right? And then you take that certificate and you combine it with this thing called a provisioning profile, right? So what is a provisioning profile? A provisioning profile is something that takes the app identifier and the certificate and creates something that's associated with your application, so that when you deploy your application to your device, it knows that, okay, this is who created this application, and this is the application that I should be running. And then it checks the application to make sure the application matches, okay? So over here, we have, as an example, a provisioning profile. As you can see, it asks for the app ID, right? And it asks for, down here, the certificate. And then it also asks which devices can this run in? So that's what a provisioning profile is. So you need one of those for your app. Each app you create needs its own provisioning profile. So this naming convention, for example, you see it has the app name, FastPass, the app that I was talking about. Here's another app name, Stackable. Then it has what it's for. This is typically the naming convention that I use. So let's create one. So this is going to be for iOS development as well, right? And let's go next. And so let's select the app ID. So it's the basic counter. Next. And then we select the certificate. So it's a development certificate for iOS. And then we select the devices that it can connect on. And then we give it a name. So I'll call this basic counter. Then generate, and you're done. Okay. So this has generated a provisioning profile. The provisioning profile that is generated, let's download it. And go to our downloads. Okay, so here's the provisioning profile. Trying to find if there's something that I can use to open this. Let me try the script editor. All right, so I don't know, I can't read it. But in any case, this profile is not actually meant for your device. It's meant to go onto your phone. And there's a couple of ways that you can get it on your phone. The easiest way is that in Visual Studio, right, you can go over to preferences, and then you basically go here, view details, and it's going to pull down all the cloud-based provisioning profiles. So you see here, it's got my basic counter iOS development. So then what you do is just click download all profiles, right? And then it downloads it so that that profile is available for you to use with your app. So now that that's done, okay, now that that's done, you can go to the next step, which is now that you now have to associate that provisioning profile that we just created with this app. So you're now saying, hey, this is the app that this provisioning profile is tied to. And you do that through the project settings options with Visual Studio. Each thing will be different. So if I go to my iOS bundle signing, over here, I can pick my developer provisioning profile. And then over here, as you can see, it shows for this signing. Well, over here, what I'm picking is my certificate. And so it's now filtering all the provisioning profiles that use this certificate. And so as you can see, it says here, basic counter iOS development. So that is the provisioning profile associated with this certificate that I can tie to it. So what you have to do as a developer is just remember, it's all about the certificates, right? That number one, it's all about the certificates, because if your certificate and provisioning profile don't match, you're just wasting your time. So it's really, so you have to find the provisioning profile that has your app name, right? and you have to select the certificate that's going to allow you to use that provisioning profile. So it's a little bit, of some variables there, right? Okay, right. And so we now have that done. So now we should be able to run this, right? So just press play. All right, there you go. So it's running. Unfortunately, you can't see it on because it's on my phone, but it is running, as you can see, and it has deployed to the device. And so if I go over here to Xcode as an example, as you can see, FlexPay iPhone is there, installed apps. It's got basic counter and here. So it's actually been installed on this device. And if I show my provisioning profiles, I should see basic counter iOS development there. So it's all set up, right? So we've now got this running on our machine. And that thing that we just did there, that's the simplest deal to people who've been doing this forever, I'm sure, and people who keep track of it. But it's the biggest deal to people who have not been doing that. Either you've been on the Windows store, or you've been on the Android store, where it's very, very casual, right? Very, very casual. So getting that thing, that understanding of the certificate signature, you've got to get the certificate on your machine. When that certificate is on your machine, that certificate that you have running on your machine, that's the certificate you have to use to sign all of your applications or all of your provisioning profiles, okay? You got to use that certificate you have in your machine. So I have a development certificate on my machine, right? It's been downloaded and installed on my machine. However I got it there, you can just literally download it. So if I go here, right, just like a provisioning profile, I can go to my certificates and I can literally download any one of these and install it into my keychain, right? Once it's installed in my keychain, it's on my machine, okay? So now it's on the cloud and on my machine. So I create my provisioning profile. I have to attach a certificate. So choose that certificate that you know is on your machine and attach those two together, right? And then your provisioning profile is downloaded. And then when you do a build, your file will be there. So that message is for the folks that, that are coming from Android and Windows, because I had that same problem. And my biggest problem with deploying to Apple was the provisioning profiles, quite frankly. It's not even anything else but the provisioning profiles. Okay, so now you've got all this done. You got your profiles done. So we have this basic counter profile done. We actually need another profile, right? So right now, this is the profile we created is the profile to allow us to install this on our machines. But it's not the profile that you need if you want to use the web. Okay, so that profile now is different. Okay, so if we go back to certificates, when you create a certificate, remember it says Apple development, Apple distribution, iOS development, right? Remember it says that. So we want Apple distribution, right? What the certificate we created previously was for Apple development, right? So is there already an Apple distribution profile on this account? Okay, so let's take a look. So here we see FlexPay Inc. distribution all, okay? So there's already a profile for distribution, right? So since there's a profile for distribution already, and it's probably installed on my machine, then what I should be focusing on now is the provisioning profiles, right? Because the provisioning profiles, once again, are tied to the app, right? So I now need to create a distribution provisioning profile. So this is for the App Store, and it's going to be the basic counter, and it's going to use my distribution certificate. Okay, so now I'm going to call it basic counter iOS. Okay, so this is my basic counter iOS production that I generated, right? So that's done now. All right. So once again, we'll go here and we'll pull it down. Now, actually, why don't we try to see if it just comes down by itself, okay? So now the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna switch this over to release, because it's not in release. Right now it's in development, right? So go over to your bundle signing, and we're now going to use the release configuration. So in the release configuration, our certificate now changes to FlexPay distribution. Okay, so now that we've changed this to FlexPay distribution, you're seeing that it's saying no matching profiles found. Well, why is it saying that? Well, it's saying that because we haven't downloaded the profiles to Visual Studio. So let's cancel this, and then let's go here. This is what I wanted to test. View details, and now, so basic counter production is now there, right? So let's download all these profiles. So now Visual Studio should have these profiles now. Say okay. So if I now go to options, and I go to release, and I go to, right? So it now shows right there, basic counter, right? So one thing to be mindful of, honestly, and I made this mistake early, and it's killing me now because some of these certificates, they don't all like disappear, right? So don't create too many certificates, because each certificate is, that you don't get to name them, right? They're being named by Apple. So you can end up with multiple certificates different, but with the same name, and you don't basically know which one you're working with, right? There's no way to tell which you're working with. So if you look here, these both are iOS distribution certificates. Pretty much everything is the same. When I go to the App Store, if I go to my certs, right? It's an Apple distribution certificate. So it's one of these, Apple distribution, but it could also be Mac distribution, right? So this Apple distribution and Mac distribution, it's like the same cert. right? It's the same thing, right? So actually this is cool because it looks like you can delete them. So I'm getting rid of you for sure, right? So there should just be an Apple distribution one, and this developer ID ones basically don't seem to go away. So that should be the only distribution cert. And let's go ahead and let's test this out. Go here and go through this again. So all the provisioning profiles are the same. And there's one Apple distribution profile. I don't see the Mac distribution profile anymore. Okay, so download all profiles. Close that. Okay. And then when we open this up, and we go to release. Oh, it's still there. All right. All right. So in any case, we'll I'll walk through that in another video, how to resolve that. So the key thing here is you select what you're supposed to select. And typically what I like to do is if I'm building, I'll link the framework SDKs. That if I'm releasing, I'll definitely do that. So let's save that. And then let's see what happens if we switch to release and we try to run this. Open up this right here. Let's see. This shows the apps that are installed on the device. Okay, so it's deploying now. Okay, application could not be uploaded to the device. Let's see what the reason is. Okay, so it could not find a valid provisioning profile for the executable. So let's see what's going on here. Show provisioning profiles. Right, so as you can see, the new provisioning profile was not added. So what if we were to add it, let's just say, right? Because we know what it is, basic counter production, right? So what if we were to add this? Is this automatically picking this up or what is going on? Okay, here it is, basic counter production. Okay. So I'm gonna here show provisioning profiles, gonna hit the plus sign, go to downloads, and we're gonna take basic counter production. Right? So it's failed to download the provisioning profile. So why is it doing that? What's the issue? What's happening here? Well, what's happening is that this particular provisioning profile has a certificate that's a production certificate. So this provisioning profile is designed for applications that are actually going into the App Store, not for development. So because of that, you can't use a certificate that's been made for going to production within your development efforts. You have to make sure that the certificate you have is set up for development, for it to deploy to your machine. That's another critical thing that you have to do, okay? So, and then when it's time to deploy, vice versa, you cannot take a development certificate and deploy it to the cloud. It also won't work, okay? So now that I have it in release, I can't debug anymore, okay? I can't run this locally anymore, right? I can't run it on my phone anymore, right? So you have to kind of, I wonder, let's check this. Actually, I haven't done this before. Let's just see if it works here. I doubt it'll actually work. Yeah. Yeah, it's basically the same error, right? Can't find the provisioning profile because you have to, the way the provisioning profile is found is based on the certificate. But strangely enough, it looks like it started. Okay, it just started the app, but there's no, the app is running. Is that correct? Is the app actually running? Yep, the app is actually running. Okay, that's then corrected. So this actually works. So you can, I guess, test your release, the release versions of your application. You can, I guess, test it through the emulator, but you won't be able to, doesn't look like you'll be able to test it on your device. But in any case, let's get to what we're supposed to be doing now. So now that we have it in release mode, so you've set it to release. So now you're going to go in here and you're going to say archive for publishing. You're going to create an archive. Okay. For you to create an archive, you have to have the actual device plugged in, right? Or you have to create it for the actual device, right? So in this case, I'm going to use FlexPay's iPhone. So let's archive for publishing. You can't use emulators. Okay. So it appears that that is done. And then now that that's done, you then click on sign and distribute. Okay. So sign and distribute, right? So now here's the cool thing, and I haven't done this, and we'll go through this in another video, but I want to know if it's possible to, to like run those ad hoc versions. How I want to know the steps of doing that. So I'll go research it and show you how you can create an ad hoc application. But for right now, we're going to use the App Store, publish into the App Store. And you're going to select upload, right? Send to App Store Connect. But in reality, that's not going to work, right? So let me do both of them. I'll first show you export. Okay. So you see what's going on here. So this is a perfect example of the problem here, right? So look at that. In terms of name, the signing identities are the same, right? But this one is not really tied to this app and has no provisioning profile associated with it, right? This one does have a provisioning profile that it's associated with, right? So that's the way that works, right? This is once again just reinforcing what we talked about before. Okay, but so you select that, and then you basically say publish. Okay, right? And so what this is going to create is it's going to create an IPA file, right? So why am I going this route? Okay, so let me first save this to, I'm going to just save it to the desktop. Okay, perfect. So why is this the route that we take here? Well, the reason why you take this route is because right now the publishing process to Apple from Visual Studio, I use the export mode because this mode does not seem to work the first time either. Okay. So let's see. So it still creates the IPA, right? But can't validate the archive. You just get issues with it. So the easiest thing to do is to create the IPA the way I said, just export it. And then after you export it, you click on transporter, right? So you have to download this app from the App Store. Okay, there it is, transporter. So you download this app from the App Store. This thing helps you upload the apps into your environment. Okay, so next step, right? We've created our IPA now. And now that we've created our IPA, we now need to go back and use the other half of what we talked about. We talked about certificates, identifiers, and profiles. We now have to go to App Store Connect, okay? So App Store Connect is where you actually create the apps, right? And set the logos, everything that a Google or Windows developer would be, would understand. That's really App Store Connect. This other part that we've been working with is really just all about getting your app identified and secured and whatnot, and supplying what services are attached to it. So once we go into App Store Connect, you're going to go to My Apps. So once again, you can see the apps that I have here, and you can see that FastPass for the iOS has been rejected for whatever reason. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but basically reject when you put an app in, if you don't have the right background color or you haven't followed this specific specification or that specific specification, you can have an issue. In this case, the issue with FastPass is that I did not link the framework assemblies, right? I wanted to try it out without linking the assemblies and see, what the difference is, and what the outcomes are of linking versus not linking. And it turns out that when you don't link, it exposes a bunch of types that are not being used by your app, but that appear in the overall library package. And basically Apple will, for some of those libraries that appear, they require certain kinds of permissions for them to be there. So you either have to add those permissions and add that capability, or get rid of it, right? And that's really what the crux of linking is. Linking is the ingenious thing that Xamarin does, where they remove any references that are not needed, they're not supposed to be in the app. They get rid of them. Any libraries that aren't being used, they get rid of them. Anything that you're not working with, they just totally get rid of. So you're down to the bare bones of what your app does. So it makes it easier for you to submit your app. Okay, so as you can see here, I have 3 apps. I don't have 4, even though I've created a new app in the other section. It hasn't been exposed here. So I actually have to create my new app, right? And I'm going to say it's for iOS, and I'm going to call it Basic Counter, right? And this is going to be in English, US. The bundle ID is Basic Counter. That's kind of cool that it picked that automatically. And user access, I guess, is full access. The SKU is going to be basic User access. What is user access? Oh, who sees it? And yeah, full access. Everybody can see it. Everybody can see it. Okay. Okay, so problem number one here, I use basic counter. It's not gonna work, so I'm gonna change it to flex pay basic counter. Okay, so this flex pay for nightclubs, use the basic counter and it integrates the results that you have into your system. It's not a feature in my application right now, but I'm just saying as an example why a company like mine might have FlexPay. Okay. So I'm refreshing, see if the app shows up. And there you have FlexPay basic counter has been set up. Okay. So now that we have our app set up, let's go back to Visual Studio. And just so for, to be comprehensive, I'm going to try to distribute again. Okay. So I'm going to try to upload again. Previously we didn't have an app. I don't want you guys to say I'm cheating. So now we have an app. Let's see what happens. BA3. No change, honestly. We'll create the archive and publishing fails, as you can see. So there's something wonky about it. And honestly, there's a simple workaround, and who cares? So if you don't care about getting this to work exactly right, then then obviously follow what I'm doing. If you do care, then I'm sure there's something out there that explains what might be going on there. Maybe I'll cover it at some point in the future. But for now, for the workaround, you click on transporter. That's going to sign you into your account. Okay. And basically you just click the plus sign and you pick the IPA that you want to upload. So I'm going to upload, let me go with basic counter 3, why not? And it's going to go in, upload the whole thing, set it all up, and then click on deliver. Verifies the app. Okay, so I think, so that's the issue because I was getting that error. So somehow Visual Studio for Mac is not verifying the application. So, and that's a step that Transporter does. So I don't know if that's if that's been removed, but why don't we talk about that? I'll make a mental note of that and we'll see how we'll try to solve that problem in another video. Okay, so now the basic counter is published. And now if I go here, I'll refresh it. My basic counter should be ready to go. And I can go in here and over here and build, right? Yeah, so over here in build, it will show up here. This is yet another strange sort of way that this functions, but when you upload your file through this transporter tool, it does not actually put your file there. It takes your file and somehow your file is validated, and then you will typically get emails. So let me just pause this here. Okay, so this has been, I don't think there's anything here. That's too bad. I'll cover up that top part. But basically, yeah, so you'll get an email of when your application is set up, when it's actually ready for you to go. And there it is. So you just got that. I just got that. App Store Connect. So it's completed processing and it's ready to move. So now if I go back here, refresh this. There we go. So when I go back here, now when I go to the build section, it says select build before you submit. So I can click on here and I can basically take this 1.0 version. That's the version that I was uploaded. That's it. It's got the app icons, got everything all set up, and I can save it. I'm basically ready for submission. Of course, you have to go in and put all these things in, but you're good to go. You submit, and then you go through the whole process. So once again, as a recap, you set up your iOS development environment. In this case, we use Visual Studio. You basically get your design going. So get your layout as they are. You sling the code in to like make everything start working. You create a provisioning profile for your app that uses a development certificate, and then you run that. You can deploy it to your device, get everything going. Once you're all set, you create a provisioning profile with a certificate for the App Store, and you attach that, switch over to the release mode. Basically, now that you're in the release mode, you take an archive of your application, and you sign and export that as a .ipa. Just export it out. Don't try to do the auto upload thing. Once that is done, you then now go back to the App Store and you create your app in actual App Store Connect, right? So you would have already been initially using just I don't even know what it's called. I don't know how to go back to it. What is this called? You originally be using, I guess, developer.apple.com. That's where everything is done. And then you click to go to App Connect. You create your app in App Connect. It's pretty straightforward. You attach the bundle that you want to attach to it. So if I create an app now, new app, choose bundle ID, nothing is showing up because all the bundles have been attached to apps. So you attach whatever bundle is available there, the app from there to here. And then you basically use the transporter app to upload your files to the App Store, wait for App Store Connect to say that they've been processed. Once they've been processed, you'll be able to attach it. Once you can attach it, you can then add all the image categories, whatever you need to do. But basically, you would have, the getting your assembly to the App Store and ready to publish piece would be done. All that would be left is adding all the images you need to add in order to satisfy publishing and filling out all the appropriate categories, having all the releases, and then you're good to go. So I hope this video has been helpful. This has been a walkthrough. If you guys like this approach, if you guys like sitting with me and just walking through the problem, sort of like stream of consciousness, like, share, subscribe. And if you like the other formats more, that's fine too. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.